Hi, thank you for the introduction, Ulle. Yes, so my name is Cecilia. I have been jumping between the tracks of fashion and web mostly, and web coding now since quite a few years. And sometimes intermixing the two, and sometimes keeping them pretty separate. So lately I have also, like I guess all of us here, had this increasing interest also in wearable technologies and where these things can go. And I noticed that in my head, on the other hand, I have quite a deep interest in traditional craft techniques. Like the things, how we've been doing them for hundreds of years, like things that are now slowly disappearing because we don't know how to do it anymore, but those things that lay the ground for our fabrics, for our textiles, and for all our objects. So basically, I noticed I started seeing those things as quite more and more actually belonging together. Whereas I often got the response, it's like, no, like one thing, it's the history, and that's the past, and this is the future. On the same hand, seeing that often it is quite the maker scene, the tinkering geeks, experimenting with technology, and on the other hand, the more crafty fashion DIY scene. They very much share the same mindset, they share the same goals, but it tends to, and sometimes it's the same people. But often it's a little bit kept apart. Some people have more interest in technology, others think like, I have nothing with tech, I can only do things with my hands, I have no understanding of this. But then actually I realized, the thing is, it is pretty much the same. It's just that, and I think we have to see wearable technologies and wearable tech as another form of craft. And also treat it as such, because now we talk a lot about the future, we talk a lot about software engineering, about new concepts, but on the other hand, I think to actually really create interesting use cases for wearable tech and to give it a good position in fashion and something that that can actually bring something to the scene, we need to approach it like from the inside. And to just bring this connection together, there's this thing actually that, yeah, so now we see, I think it's a great initiative now to organize this conference and bring the fashion scene and the tech scene close together in this, and sometimes it seems like it's different worlds, but on the other hand, in the beginning of the industrialization, actually, when we started making looms, actually, one of the sources of modern computing comes from the Jacquard loom and from the punch cards used in this. And this was something I was unaware of until very recently, until my friend Peter over there pointed it out. So actually, in the end, the textile industry is the mother of modern computing in some cases. And now we're at this magic moment of time where the circle has gone round. And it's like the computer is calling back to the fashion designers to do something with it. So, where I think actually code and craft and fashion design, it is very closely connected. Like, because if you can create a knitting pattern, if you can follow it, you can also code. Because it's about repetition, it's about the specific syntax, specific structures. And and then I think this is like, the interesting with the wearables, I think it's not the smartwatch. It's great that we are there. But the point where it becomes interesting, it is like when can we go beyond the add-on, where the wearables don't stay on being something that we can add on to what we already have, because when we do this, it remains a patch to our clothing and something which is still separate. And where can we interweave with the fabric so it actually becomes one with fashion design and with the fabric and with our objects, and that we interweave it together. And I think here, this is where the fashion designers come into the game. And this is like my pledge, actually, to the designers, that I think software engineers can take this so and so far. And they can imagine a lot of things what you can do with technology. But to actually develop new ideas and new applications, it takes such an in-depth understanding of craft and about the structures of the object that only the artisan have. So I think actually, like, we need the artisans and we need the fashion designers to now take over the ball from the engineers and imagine new fields of application. Because there is this thing such as how there's like all the knowledge of fashion design, like how you drape, how clothing moves on the body, how something falls onto the body, functionality and form. This is like this whole profession. I think this is something which is required to be able to integrate wearables fully. And such as, like, I would take as an example one of the most innovative great fashion designers today that work a lot with technology is Miyake, for example, which is like, have developed this fabric called 3D steam seam, which isn't, it's not even that, I would say now this is nothing, it's not circuit boards, it's not the kind of wearables, but it's purely from experimenting and further developing weaving and combining different warp and weft threads of polyester and cotton in a way that it automatically folds when it's being steamed. So it's just that the fabric contracts in a certain way. And I think here, but to be able to do something like this, you need to have this knowledge of, like, of the actual matter and the fibers from deep inside. Or other things, I think that what's this amazing thing what you can do with conducting fabrics and computational fabrics. So this is actually, I see it like with fashion. We often say, like, fashion, it's about communication. It's about how you connect, like, you show to others, you communicate who you are, you connect to others, and to this inner and outer worlds. And the great part of wearable tech is, of course, that now we can take this one level further and actually connect to this inner and outer worlds through the clothing. So in the end, it is, I think, what fashion designers are already doing. It's just required to add this extra tools to it, to their toolkit, to be able to do it. So what I would like to say is that, well, actually, I think for all the fashion designers out there, in the end, the technology, it's something like we have to embrace it and to make it ours. And this it doesn't take us that we need to have, like, to re-educate ourselves. And we should definitely not become engineers. And that's not what it's about, but it's much more about to just add some new tools to your toolkit when you are designing and experiment these things and fuck those things up and to make a lot of mistakes, because I think that's where our possibilities lie. And that's where we can create actually interesting new fields for using this, because I think this is the most amazing with this point in time. I mean, one thing, it's the availability of components and tech and the price, and that there is a lot of exciting things happening, also like in design and in tech. But I think the most exciting thing is that we all have this sense of that we can make things, but we don't know what to make yet. And I'll go back. So, yeah, and I think, and this is like, it's about like what kind of future do we want? Like clothing is something, it's so close, and this is why it's sometimes a little bit intimidating when we imagine what we could do with these things, because it is really close to us. It comes close a little bit to genetical modifying food and so on. And now it's also like, but it's still a little bit open, and now we can imagine what's going to happen. And I think that now we want the artists and the designers to go in and also take part in it and help shaping the tools so that we have, as much as possible, a multifaceted future and multifaceted tools. and not just have like a science fiction future that look nothing like what we're used to and what it used to be like. So this is basically, and I would like to say that like actually for the designers, like this tech thing, that's the thing, you have to get your hands dirty and you have to make a lot of mistakes, but you don't need to become an engineer. You just have to like start using new materials and see what they can do for you. Because in the end, I mean, it is up to us to imagine what we're going to do with this. And because basically it's also like we need this, as in many cases in history, you need to jump over the fence to make new things happen, because those who are already into it, they probably won't be the ones who can imagine things far enough, but you have to have this outside look. So, thank you very much.